So we're at a very busy central station. 6,000 Newcastle fans heading down to the capital tonight for the big one against Arsenal. It should be absolutely brilliant. Well, we've arrived in London and I think the capital is about to get ready for Newcastle United takeover. 6,000 fans landing here in the next few hours, and many of them already down here and really building up to this semi-final. It doesn't really get much bigger than this really for Newcastle United. In the last four of a major competition, fighting to get back down here for another Wembley final. It's what people dreamt of when the takeover went through, and Eddie Howe has so far guided his team successfully into the semi-finals. There's a good feeling around the place. I think many Newcastle fans believe that Newcastle can not only get through, but they can possibly get a strong result tonight, which would be absolutely massive. So yeah, as I say, Newcastle fans tonight will be there in their droves. The Emirates Stadium hasn't been kind to Newcastle down the years, but Arsenal have got many big games on their mind at the moment. They're in a title race. If you remember, they've got Manchester United in the FA Cup in another huge game. So tonight, you know, where does that lie in their priority list? We'll have to wait and see what the team sheets are later on. But ultimately for Newcastle United, this is what it's all about. Getting to London and making sure they make themselves heard for this big clash tonight against Arsenal. Well, it's an absolute glory night for Newcastle United here at the Emirates. We didn't think we'd see Newcastle United doing this tonight. Going into it, everyone was cautious, wondering what type of score it would be to take Newcastle into the second leg. But they were fantastic. It was a tactical masterclass from Eddie Howe. His team outfought Arsenal. They scored the goals when it mattered. They got one 8 minutes before the break when Isak smashed home off the bar to put Newcastle in control, and Newcastle went in at half time, and pundits were questioning, well, what would Newcastle do next? Well, they went out in the second half and scored within 6 minutes. Isak again instrumental. Jacob Murphy played him in. He hammered a shot at rear and it fell for Gordon to make it 2-0, and Arsenal couldn't come back from that. Yes, they piled a lot of pressure on later on, but Newcastle were fantastic. They defended with their lives. They made sure that this 2-0 lead will stay intact for the second leg. And now Newcastle United, if they get an early goal in that second leg, it is in a month's time, they will probably be through to the Carabao Cup final again. Fabian Schär and Bruno Guimaraes will also be back, but Newcastle should enjoy this. They won't get carried away, but it was a great performance, and they're 2-0 up after the first leg. Well, one or two reflections after, as I've already called it, a glory night for Newcastle United here in the capital. 2-0 against Arsenal. It's beyond Newcastle's wildest dreams to be in this position going into the second leg. But notably from Eddie Howe and his players, basically warning everybody, this is only half time. We knew Eddie Howe would basically have something lined up to say win, lose or draw tonight, and that's going to be his approach to this. If you look at Newcastle's fixture list, got a fair few games before that second leg, and you know that this game isn't over. It's very dangerous, in fact, to think that it's over. So while the fans will get carried away, Eddie Howe was very, very calm and composed in his press conference after the game. And there's a good reason for that, because if you look at Newcastle United's fixture list between now and then, they've got Bromley in the FA Cup, they've got Wolverhampton Wanderers at home, they've got AFC Bournemouth at home, they've got Southampton away and Fulham at home. Those three games could, in the Premier League, those three games could have a big bearing on whether Newcastle qualify or not for the Champions League. So you can totally understand why Eddie Howe has gone down this route. He was never going to say it was game over. He was never going to write the tie off, but he could not be happier with where Newcastle are in this game. Of course, he said afterwards that, you know, Newcastle hard rode the luck at times, but I think ultimately, when everyone reflects on this, this is, as I say, it's beyond Newcastle's wildest dreams to be 2-0 up against Arsenal. And you know, the fact that their supporters just walked out the stadium towards the end of the game was just, I've never seen anything like it, really. It was just unbelievable. The stadium was just half empty by the time the final whistle went. But the Newcastle fans in and around London at the moment still absolutely soaking up this victory, and so they should, really, because it's a fantastic achievement. Many people before the game wondered how many, you know, Newcastle could afford to lose by. So to be 2-0 up is just absolutely incredible, and that second leg will be something else at St James's Park. We had a little taste of it last time, 2 years ago. Southampton, Newcastle winning 3-1 on aggregate, but this is next level stuff to be 2-0 up against Arsenal, and both Liverpool and Tottenham will probably be fearing Newcastle and what they can do, because at the end of the day, Newcastle, if they do reach the final now, it doesn't matter who they play, because ultimately, if you want to win it, then you've got to play the best teams, and they will have faced some of the best teams in Europe by the time they get to what would be a second Wembley showpiece in the space of 3 seasons. So, brilliant night, brilliant trip for the fans, and now Newcastle can reflect on this and, you know, talk about season defining. If you look at Newcastle's next 6 games, I think 5 of them are at home, so it could all be, you know, shaped at St James's Park in both the Premier League for the race of the Champions League. We don't know what's going to happen in the FA Cup, but certainly Newcastle can book that place at Wembley and solidify their place in the top 4 in the next few weeks. Really exciting time to be a Newcastle United fan.